Hey, Jenny.
Hey, Nikki.
Hey, disruptors. Disrupt. To disturb, rattle, agitate, confuse, disorder. To destroy the normal continuance or unity of. To disrupt a connection.
On this show, we harness the power of disruption to propel positive change and personal fulfillment. Get ready to reimagine the future as we disrupt the status quo for good. The opinions expressed on this podcast are our own based on our own personal experiences. We encourage you to think critically and find your own path. The information provided is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. I mean, come on.
We are here to disrupt. Hey, Jenny.
Hey, Nikki.
So we do have a special episode today.
Yeah.
So we're talking about something that we deal with all the time. Hate and conflict. Like we deal not us hating.
It's not like
people
all the time.
Yes, but
it's over our life. It's enough.
It's
Like it's
amount.
enough.
And you're gonna have a decent amount of conflict and hate when it comes from disruption and disrupting everything.
You cannot be a disruptor and not expect to have somebody who gets mad.
Yeah.
At you.
Somebody's not going to like you. Somebody's not going to approve. And somebody's going to think that you're, what's the word I want to use?
Oh, I don't know. I can't think of it.
There's
I don't
so
know.
many words.
There's so many words that they use to describe, especially women, don't they? Well, difficult. Yeah. We'll start with the easy one. I mean, how many times have I been told, well, Jenny, you know you're difficult.
Yes.
I say, bitch, I know I'm difficult.
You fucking know I'm difficult. And
it's my fucking
I've
idea.
definitely been called crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, for sure.
And they don't even have to say you are crazy to show you that they straight up think you have lost your mind.
Exactly.
Like they start completely dismissing you, disregarding you. They have a way of blocking. Mm-hmm. There are ways that like you behave to somebody who you think is not worthy of your time or your space.
So let me ask you, in your life, what are the circumstances that you have found yourself in, and how have you dealt with them in terms of like someone saying to you, like you're unhinged or you're not?
Unhinged
like,
is the
unhinged
other
is a
word.
good one. I like that one actually.
I've had that one.
I kind of enjoy unhinged.
Yeah, I'll be like, yep.
It's just really, it's like a blanket term for like whatever the fuck happens.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with that, and how have you dealt with that? Because, and I know there are people that love to say things about us on the internet and things about like how we live our life and decisions, and everybody is in our business, not because we want them to be. It's just because
that's life today.
That's life today.
Things are public. People know you.
Yeah. So how do you deal with
figureheads, all of that?
Talk to me about it.
Well, for one thing, I don't look at the stuff online. I really don't. I don't seek it out. I don't look at it. I rarely experience that directly because as we like to think, you're not going to say it to my face.
Oh, you're not going to say it to my face.
Generally speaking, that happens online too. People are not going to come and say something directly to me. Mm-hmm. And if they do, I take them out of my life because this is my personal space. Even though it's public, like a lot of people, it is still my house. My Instagram is my house, and you don't come into my house and speak to me like that. I take you out. Mm-hmm. So it hasn't happened all that often, but it does happen. And the same is true when people get a little too close. Yeah, it gets a little creepy. That happens too, and that's a whole other thing. Mm-hmm. But I think even the bigger thing for me. Well, it's twofold. I mean, there are a couple of things, but in my life, something that's been challenging is when your name is on what you do, and you have to say, "We're doing it my way," because as soon as you do, you're pissing somebody off. I think that I'm right about this. There are for every one person who can actually help you, and actually is bringing it in and can help you, there are 500 people who think that you should do it their way. And then a few of those people that if you don't do it their way, they think you're an idiot. They think you're crazy. They think you're, disrupting. I don't know, whatever. They get angry at you. And this has happened like when Jenny's was tiny and we were in the market and some kid was working there and they would get pissed and I'd be like, sorry, we're just going to do it my way. All the way up,
Yeah.
There's still people who worked at Jenny's like earlier on, and I heard somebody, call me a narcissist or whatever. Well, like I don't know how to process that, because you know what? It is my idea. It is my name.
It is your
It
name.
is my life's work. And I'm going to protect it, because if I followed every person who came in here with their idea, thought they were better, we would be making gelato, on a boat somewhere in Sardinia. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's important. I mean, because it is your name, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and you
people,
too. Yeah.
and me too. I mean, people know you as Jenny. People identify you directly with your company and ice cream. People know me as Chef Nikki. People identify me directly with food and
the quality of your food and creativity,
exotic, crazy experiences. And so same thing with me. I mean, if I tell people all the time, I said what I said. And it's not because...
If you ever said that to me, I'd be like, yes, chef. Like, done.
But seriously, even though I said what I said, I do give you space to talk to me about what you may think. I'm not going to dismiss your thoughts if you have an opinion
of course.
on how things should move. I'm going to always take that into consideration. But being in control of yourself and having a vision, and not getting deterred from that just because people are just
exactly,
saying all these little things
or putting pressure on you,
or putting
making you
pressure
feel a
on
certain
you.
way, trying to kind of bully you into it.
Exactly,
it's true.
It's a very interesting balance, because you don't want to be this angry woman. Okay, add another adjective for me and just put angry black woman on there. Yep. If you want to, you don't want to be
always be nice about everything while you're telling somebody we're doing it my way.
Yeah.
And I've never said to somebody we're doing it my way. It's sort of, you always have to be like, oh, I love that. That's really great. Really,
I
okay.
appreciate that.
I'll take that into consideration.
Take it into consideration.
Yeah, I'm really grateful.
Yeah. Honestly, to be honest with you, I more than often am grateful.
Yeah, it's
because
true.
If you see my business and you feel like there's something that I'm missing, or something needs to be adjusted, or flavors need to change here, or things like that, the menu needs to change here, I'm open to that.
Totally.
But at the end of the day,
somebody's got to make a decision, and we just got to move. No, but the point is a really important one, which is that we have to build, and we both do this, and it's really important at Jenny's. And I really worked hard at it, and I failed a lot at it, but I really worked hard at it to make sure that I created a space where people could bring in ideas. Because the last thing you want, I really hate this, and this is what has happened, I've been around it too, the last thing you want is a culture of positivity where everybody thinks that. I really don't like that. And I realize that as leaders, especially as founders, especially as the figureheads, you have to go above and beyond to give people the space so that they can say, because when something is going wrong and it needs your attention, they need to be able to tell you that too. And so you have to create space where people are open to opinions, and also you have to be a person who's willing to change, because I can't tell you how many times somebody's had a better idea than mine, and you have to be like, you know what, you're right. Of course. So all of that is like, you can't build an organization like what we're building without that. You can't have cultures of positivity. You can't have cultures of command and control. And at the same time, when somebody gets rubbed the wrong way because they thought their idea was better, or they thought you were being a bitch or whatever, you also can't help that. And most of the time, what I have found is when somebody feels that way, it's true, not just in business, everywhere. When somebody feels that way, it's more to do with them than it is you.
Yes.
Because I know that generally speaking, we can be tough, but we're nice people. I know that because of the people we hang out with, and the way we are.
Yes.
Sure. Like, we're like everybody. We can we can have our days, but generally speaking, we are really great people. We're nice people. I'm speaking of you, we're not here to make somebody feel bad ever.
No, we're not here to make anyone feel bad.
But you got to protect your space.
You do have to protect your space. Honestly, I identify with other disruptors, even people that work for me. I identify and welcome in that understanding. Like, okay, I see you, I hear you. You know what I mean? Like, I still encourage a certain amount of shake it up. Shake it up a little bit, you know what I mean? But on the flip side of that, outside of your actual personal, like, employees and people that you work with, all of your colleagues, when you're going into that space where people think that, like, I remember having this conversation with you one day and you were like, I know they think that I'm crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I know that they think that, like, I'm just, this mad woman.
Well,
But
and then
it's
the other
not
thing,
true. It's just how
Yeah.
they're positioning you, because you're trying to reestablish and assert yourself in a
Yeah.
certain way. You know what I mean?
I definitely do. And I feel like sometimes too, the more you hear that and it sort of, there, the more it almost becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy because I
Oh my
really
gosh, yeah.
did lose my perception of reality at one point in my life because the people around me
Made you.
were so
Yeah.
unbelievably linear to a point that it was untrue, because truth is so many. Truth is like what you experience, and you can feel truth too. You know when something is right or wrong, and I would know it, but it's like sometimes people can be so good at linear argument and they win, but they're not telling the truth. That was really hard for me.
Yeah,
Really hard, and that's when it does
fucked up
kind of
cycle.
make you
Yeah, I
like,
feel you.
whoa. Like, then you lose it. Then over time, you're like, this is not the same reality that I'm experiencing.
Because
And
you
what
knew
the fuck?
you weren't tripping from the day
Yeah.
one. Like, I know I'm not, like, losing it.
Yeah.
It's just the way that people are conspiring around you to make you feel like you're not in alignment.
Well, and I'm a person who believes very strongly that almost everything is very easy to solve. You just get in front of people.
I agree.
You bring everybody together and you just say, hey, this made me feel that way. I'm sure you didn't mean it that way. This made me feel this way. And, they'll say the same to you and you're like, shit, I didn't realize I was doing that. And it's like, oh, great. Once you come together and you just take all the facades off, whatever. But it's like, there are also so many people right now, look at like stoicism, for instance, which I don't really agree with. I think there's a lot of great things about it or whatever. But to me, it's like this facade of, especially men, they have to behave in this certain way. I really feel bad for them because it's like any emotion that's ever shown is like a weakness. I don't think that. I think great leaders can be really like kind of can get really excited and like show their excitement, show their frustration, show that they're human,
Yeah.
But I think that we're in an era where like taking down the facade is a sign of weakness. And I think
It's a
that's
sign
really
of
sad
weakness,
because
yeah.
that's what opens up conversations that are problems are so easy to solve when you talk.
I agree.
That's true of everybody,
I agree.
but-
I agree. I think that, like, creating an environment that has radical transparency and has an environment that is like, we're going to just shoot straight to the point. And the radical transparency sometimes hurts.
Yeah.
It can hurt.
And it's the best thing for you.
But it's the best thing
okay, but
for
have you ever had somebody who comes up and they're like, I'm giving you a coaching moment? And you're like, you are the last person I would take coaching
last.
from. Like, I do think that having a coach has been transformative for me.
Yeah.
And I would say that anybody who's a founder, having a specific founder coach is really important because founders have we are not executives. We have a different power when we walk into a room. And it's hard for us to accept that because we want to be in the trenches a lot, with our team. But it actually, at some point, it starts to make people feel uncomfortable when
It
you're doing
does.
that.
I mean, I used to think the trenches were like, oh yeah, like I'm not like tried, true, and tested. I've been in the
I
trenches.
didn't sell out. I'm still like,
I'm still
here.
in here. And like, then I started looking at the trenches like they were the fucking projects. I was like, I don't want to go back. Like, I'm not trying to go in the hood. But part of that is just that energy of like the kind of the griminess of my work. Like it's very gritty and it's very, like you just gotta bear down and just grunt it and just take that shit. You know what I mean? And so I think those trenches for me, when I started to think about life a little bit differently, I had to bring a softness into into those trenches to let people know there's also a way out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's also other things, and we can behave differently. We can cooperate. We can love differently. All of these things, we don't have to stay there. You know what I mean?
Oh,
we
definitely.
We don't have to stay there.
So
But
this is my aunt. She always said, I asked her, she was like, she was like, she sold semi trucks in this thing in this dealership in Texas in the 80s. I wrote something about this and I'm about to post. And and a lot of people who know me know that I've said this for a long time because she told me about this. But she was like a top salesperson in their company. She's the only woman that worked there. She was adorable. She still is. She was
I mean,
bleach
selling
blonde,
semis
selling
is
semi
not a
trucks, and they were like
lightweight
luxury ones, and they were like, you know, chain smoking, fast talking men, and she was top salesperson. I'm like, how do you do it, Linda? And she was like, Jenny, you got to be a soft edged bitch. And I was like, soft edged bitch. That's exactly what it is. But you just said this idea of softness, and I think that we should pause and highlight, as we've talked about before, this idea that disruption can happen and it actually should happen sometimes in these very soft ways. That softness isn't weakness. It's actually like this idea of loving. It can be incredibly disruptive.
Yeah.
It doesn't, like, disruptive is not taking a hammer to something or a sledgehammer. Like, sometimes it is the softness that will carry you out.
Yeah. It's
rearranging,
rearranging that. And once you rearrange and put a softer edge on it, I mean, soft edge bitch is probably the best way that I could probably describe myself today.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Yeah.
And I don't always identify with the word bitch, but I know that I definitely can own that shit. You feel me?
Yeah.
And I definitely know that.
Well, if you put it in somebody else, if you're looking through the lens of someone else who's using that term, who understands that term, then I can say, yeah, I can step into that. Because what it really means is like, I have power over you and that makes you uncomfortable. And I don't like to have power over other people anyway. It's not that it's that perceived.
The perceived.
Perceived power. You perceive that I have power over you and that makes you feel uncomfortable.
And also it's a part of, like, you know, the way that we have to navigate the world to get things done. I tell people all the time, like, I low-key am tired of being so hard out here in the world.
No shit.
Like, hard as fuck. Like, just constantly approaching things with a very stern angle. Like, my brow is tired, okay, of frowning. Like, it's tired of being scrunched up and, you know, being in
you get
this...
the Botox in there and you can't do it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, yes, we need a Botox sponsor for my brows, for my frow. Like, anyway, but it is a way that you do have to navigate that space, because when you're sitting there as a person, you don't even have to be a woman in this case, but when you're sitting there looking at a situation where you know you got to walk into and you got to disrupt that shit because it's not working, or it's not for you, or you see it's not for the community or the greater good, or, you know what I mean, whatever the case is, you really got to shore yourself up before you walk into that space. Number one, say, I am good enough. They are going to hear me. They're going to receive.
And if they don't hear you, that's where in some ways, you know, you're going to do your best to make them hear you, to make them, you know, to deliver your message, to create change. And when it still doesn't happen, that's when disruption is your only option. You know, so then you have to use that. Well, then you're going to create some anger there, but you're going to create change.
And you're going to create change.
And you step into it, and you know, Brené Brown actually has a really great book. It's probably my favorite book of hers. It's called Rising Strong. Okay. And even if you haven't read Brené Brown, if you want to, it's even a good book to start with. It wasn't her first book.
Tell me about it.
She has 3. It's like, you know, when you know you're a woman, you're a human, in this position where you're about to walk in and you're about to say something like, we need to get a divorce, or, you know, you've made the decision, but you haven't, you know, stepped into it yet, or I need your attention about this. Something has to change. So she has it's like a 3 part process, and I like how she defines it. It's the reckoning, the rumble, and the revolution.
Oh shit, reckoning first.
So she lays it out. It's the reckoning, the rumble, the revolution.
Okay.
And I went by this for a long time because I think it's brilliant. And anybody who's been through a crisis or been through something like a divorce or been through something where you just had to blow something up for a minute, you know that there's that reckoning moment where you say it. And then the hardest part is the rumble. The hardest part is actually the middle. It's like a minefield where, like, everybody comes at you like, oh, but you were the perfect couple. And, like, you know, you've got to, your kids are like, I'm scared, Mom. You know, you're like, okay, it's going to be okay. Like, I promise you got to, like, figure that out. You have to hold strong like an oak tree and not turn around, because that's the part where everybody turns around. They're like, I'm not strong enough to do this. You know, so you hold your ground and you get to the other side, and then that's the revolution. And then you get to this place where you've really created this change that's good for actually everybody. But nobody wants to go through that. and you do bring a lot of people with you, but it's actually better for everybody. Okay, now we got into this whole topic of change versus like haters, but that's the sort of, you get scared to say what you believe because you think that it's not valued, or that somebody's going to be angry at you.
Yeah.
We should talk about the internet.
We can definitely talk about the internet.
Because that is also like, this is something that I think people deal with a lot right now. And we just, I just heard this term just this week, nuance trolling.
Yeah.
Where like, if you have a big idea and let's say you share it with your followers, and your big idea is, I'm going to open a rec center, whatever, your neighborhood idea. And somebody comes in and says, you'll never make the money. You'll never get the money. Or you can't do that and serve this many people. There's always some reason, of course, that this is going to be complicated and difficult.
Yeah.
But a big believer, an imaginative person, somebody who's got these big ideas, you and I both are like this. You figure it out. You make it work.
You make it
and
fucking
you do.
work, yeah.
And people are afraid to step into their ideas right now because of the nuanced trolls out there who are going to, of course, come in and tell you all of the million reasons. But it's so obvious right now in all of our comments, in all, and you look to anybody who's expressing any kind of revolution, kind of revolutionary idea or disruptive idea right now, or is leading some kind of major change. There's always these people nitpicking at why you can't do it. And because it's all public right now, it holds us back. Mm-hmm. So there's the haters. Of course, there's people. We hear about people talking shit about us out there or whatever. And, and sometimes you're like, they don't even know me. I don't even know them. But then there's the people who are just like, you're afraid to say anything because somebody's going to come in and say, well, if you didn't say anything about this, well, now you're here for this, but you're not here for that. And like, it's like, you can never be a disruptor right now because it's too hard.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely taking that into consideration, there's always a motherfucker behind a keyboard that won't say it to your face.
Oh yeah,
it's always somebody that just saying all of these things, and they're sitting at home, and not even in a quarter of the amount of production of life and work that you're in. And so it's like there's always this critical scope of what I should be doing. But did you even have enough balls to start a company?
Exactly.
Did you even have enough balls to stand up here? And
you work literally 20 hours a day for 15 years to do literally anything, because if you had, you wouldn't be sitting there worried about what I'm doing.
Like, get the fuck on.
Yeah.
And it really is actually something that really disturbs me to the point where it's really hard for me to like shuffle through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook for the old folks. If you're on Facebook, I feel like I'm only on Facebook looking at my high school classmates and college mates. But it is something that, like, when you read the comments of, that you didn't do this and you didn't do that, when you thought that what you put out was really great, and it was one of your best
and
works.
Heartfelt, yeah.
And very heartfelt. And there's always somebody's going to come behind you. So here's the thing. I've taken the internet or social media as just a necessary evil for work. Mm-hmm. And I just keep it as like almost like marketing and branding and things like that, and not too much of my personal life. I took a lot of the pictures of my kids down.
Yeah, I did
just
too.
because I'll tell my kids happy birthday on there and stuff like that. Just something light. But like, there's so many people that have so many things to say because we're so overexposed.
Yeah.
The
thing is, you can feel what people say. So it's like, it's not just what they say, but it's certain people and what they don't say. So they'll say one thing, but then they don't say something else. Mm-hmm. And like, you get to know some of your followers. And even if you know that they've got mostly your best interest in mind, so I keep a lot of things private because I know that I'll feel through the energy field what people really think about it. And it will change how I think about things. And I don't need that.
I don't need it.
I want my own opinions about my own life. And I'm really scared of that, actually, that there's too many opinions. And I think about young people, and I think they're growing up with this. They're growing up feeling the energy coming through.
The angst. So much angst.
And this fear of not looking like everybody else, of not fitting in. But when I was a kid, a high school kid, I didn't want to look like I wanted to look exactly the opposite of everybody else. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be like I mean, like I wanted nothing to do with like normal, whatever normal was. I was rebelling against that. I wanted to be smoking on the corner. I didn't care about smoking. I just wanted to like be, if everybody told me I had to be healthy, I go smoke on the corner. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I was I was rebelling. I wanted to, like, if everybody's like, you should be chipper and whatever, I was wearing all black. Like, no, you know, I mean, and funny enough, I think something weird happened. So I used to go to Nirvana shows when they were here, but they were coming through with these tiny vans. This was in like 90, 91, playing at Stashes, this little place down there. And I was 16, 17 years old, and I bribed the doorman to let me in. And one time we played pool with the band, and like, I mean, it was cool. It was like, this was maybe the last era where kids were really, when they were disruptors, they were really disruptors. I think, of course, there are kids that are disrupting right now, but in terms of like really disrupting, going into
no
something
influence.
new. Yeah, grunge was new. And I don't know, there haven't been a lot of new things in the last 30 or 40 years. And, you know, everything kind of recycled
Everything
the
has
past.
been recycled. Grunge has been recycled.
And now it has too.
Yeah.
But like, I remember a couple of years later, so when I was in high school, you know, people would beat on my door or my window. Like I'd be like listening to it too loud, and they'd be like pounding on my, you know, all the jocks walk by and like, shut that shit off. Literally a year and a half later, this big football player, the star football player in the who was like so angry at me the year before, knocked on my window. And I rolled it down, and it was like, he was like, hey, where'd you get that music? Because back then, you know, you had to go to a record store.
Yeah,
and like our
tapes.
Nirvana tapes were taped at shows, and then we would make tapes of other kids who went to other shows in other cities, and they would make their rounds. It was the coolest time to be alive.
Really
but then what happened was Nirvana, sorry, I know this is a long story, but like Nirvana became popular that year. Smells Like Teen Spirit came out. And that was the end, in my recollection of my life, my trajectory. I became very confused, like, what the fuck? Nobody looks different anymore. All of the sudden, all the jocks were wearing, and I don't care about this, but like they were wearing the goth stuff and they were wearing the grunge stuff, and like there was no like cool American cool anymore. There was no rejection of norm anymore.
Yeah, and I
think
like,
it's true today.
I think it's true. And then I grew up in the disruption of the hip hop era and the clothing and that type of music and rap that was like edgy and not like
did that happen?
The hip. It wasn't that. It was like, you know, fuck the police and like, you know, like.
I mean, that was my era too. I liked like Diggable Planets and Us Three. Like that was my vibe. This is like early 90s.
This is early 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in high school. I graduated high school in 98. And so, but it was still an era of like, for us, especially like in the community, like in the Black community, like it was like hairstyles. Like we were like the hairstyles that you see now, the nails that you see now, the clothing that you see now, of course it's recycled, but that 90s era was a different era.
New then?
It was very new.
Yeah.
We were like doing crazy hairstyles. Like we would be in the salons for like hours doing these crazy different like freeze curls, updos, French rolls. Like it was just all these things. And then one day I said to myself, I'm going to cut my hair. And I was like 16 years old and I cut it just as short as it is now. And people were like, what the fuck are you doing? Why would you cut your hair? Like, you're basically bald. And I was like, I love it, though. I feel like it looks like me. And then I started growing locks. And then I had locks in my hair when I graduated high school. But that era, I found myself, we called it ciphers. And we would sit there and we would freestyle. And then we had our own little collectives, like own little rap groups. And I was a part of a rap group called the Cypher Unlimited Crew and the Unleash Illness Crew. And we had we had these old little things where we were like, you know, this is.
I bet our worlds crossed at some point.
They probably did. They probably did. It was a very.
I was hanging out with a lot of like. I mean, there were some graffiti artists. A lot of going to a lot of like shows in basements.
A lot
even
of that.
Like
It was a lot of break
shows.
dancing. It was a lot of poetry slams.
Yeah.
It was a lot of originality of words.
Exactly.
And also music. And people were blending jazz with hip hop and creating new sounds and creating new like vibes, like when Diggable Planets, and then you had Tribe Called Quest, and you have De La Soul, you have all of these groups, and then Wu-Tang came in like right around the time that I was like junior year in high school, and that created a whole nother freaking sound for us. And so,
So
yeah,
it's like, it's almost like, then what?
then what?
Because then it's like, and this is what the problem is. So we get back to this whole haters thing in a way, which is it became impossible to stand out.
It
It became impossible to do something new.
So the only
this
thing
gets
you could
back
do
to
was
capitalism,
hate.
of course, but yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets back to how this society is ordered, and it needs disruption, but nobody knows how to do it.
Nobody knows how to do it.
I mean, we need it on all levels, and
Yeah, nobody knows how to do it except for like creating different versions of the same thing.
Yeah.
And hoping it hits. And like
well,
viral
totally, like
moments.
Eminem right now.
Eminem.
Yeah, I mean, like
You mean Eminem's new album?
It's
I was like,
no,
what's-
but it's all it is though. But like, yeah, it's
It
all just
is.
redoing everything.
It is redoing
Yeah.
it. It's a lot of redoing, and it's a lot of it's a lack of originality. When I want to create new things, when I want to like create a new version of me, I shut myself off from social media. I shut myself off from like I don't watch the news. I don't really
Same, actually. Yeah,
don't
that's
really
what I do.
connect to a
I get
lot
bored of myself,
technology.
and then I wanna, tune
and I
out.
have to dig deep within to understand a new level of creativity for myself or a new idea. But I have to close off the world in order to think clearly so I can think for myself. And I think that people are not doing that enough. They're so busy worried about what the Kardashians are doing, what they're wearing, and what their body types are, or, like what the trad wives are doing. Do you want to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich by making starter sourdough, grinding peanuts from scratch, getting
Picking
grapes,
strawberries. Right.
strawberries?
Yeah.
Like, are you doing that now? Like, like everything is a novelty.
And even as a mother, like if you're not doing it in that way, are you putting yourself in danger?
Yeah, or you
by
just,
not.
you suck because you're not making your children like food from scratch.
Which is dangerous right now because look what it does to anxiety. We have never experienced this much anxiety and depression
Yeah.
and suicide rates.
Swear to God.
And
Yeah.
this is what it is. So it is dangerous,
It is.
and you're putting yourself in danger by not making your kids the perfect sandwich.
Yeah.
Which is
and I felt like I've gotten out a mini group text with like moms, mini group text. There was just a group text of like some of the women I went to college with. They just like, what is your kid doing? What is your kid like? It's a lot of bragging on what their kids is doing. And I always have had older kids because I had my kids younger. And so I kind of really got tired of that energy of like, why am I competing with you? Why is my 4-year-old competing with your 3-year-old? Or why is my 10-year-old like worried about, like if they're going to get into Columbus Academy or Wellington, like all these like, prestigious schools, just because we're trying to keep up with all this. It's just like this competition where I was just like, why are we doing this? Like, why are you not allowing your children to be free thinkers and choose and be? And I got out of those situations because I was like, oh, I'm not this type of mom. I'm not going
Same.
to compete with other moms and what their kids are doing.
I have never played that game. I'm
Yeah.
like, I think school for some kids is really great. For me, my family and my experience, it didn't help us. It was not a
Yeah.
good thing. I think college has been different and I love it, and everybody's got to find their own way. But I don't put that pressure on my kids, but they get it from somewhere else, right?
Yes.
Because this is the problem right now.
They get it from somewhere else.
They get
and
it from
do.
everywhere else, yeah.
They get it from school. They get it from, I'll tell you what, like I probably, my daughter who's in college now, I remember the peer pressure she had just to exist. And like, just in general, like there was just so many things, and it put her in a state where she felt like she wasn't worthy of certain things and she didn't deserve certain things because she didn't have, like the kids driving BMWs, their first car, and like just all of these things, which I think that like, cool, if you want to get your kid a BMW for their first car, fine. But I feel like, I don't know, you kind of learn a little bit of a lesson when you get like a used car.
Well, I totally agree. I would never. I mean,
You get like a used car.
right.
So.
I mean, if I mean, the kids driving the brand new Jeeps and all that stuff, fine, whatever, do it. But like, I'm thinking there's going to be hopefully very minor accidents. There's going to be things that are going to come and like,
times
you
my
got to
daughter
work for your
has
own car.
scraped her car
Yeah.
on the curb,
Right.
a parking garage. There's like white stripes along the side of her car.
Well, not only that, but I mean, I don't know. Like I only got my first car this year. My first new car this year. I always buy used cars. Like I don't understand the need to go out and do that, except that I do understand this idea right now of fitting in that is stronger now than it ever has been.
It's
the
so
kids
strong.
that have the courage, anybody right now that has the courage to really stand out and be different and raise their hand and say something that might be controversial, that might not fit into the norm. I have so much respect for those people.
I do too.
Not just people who can complain about stuff, but people who are thinking critically, and
they rise above that.
Sometimes, you know, those ideas have to kind of rub some people the wrong way, even people that like, you know, we respect, you know.
Hey man, it could be your parents. It could be your, you know, your colleagues. I think that explaining disruption to your parents, especially, you know, like having the era that our parents are in, you know, they understood change when you're like, okay, we saw the 70s and, you know, like the 80s, like it was wild times. But now, like I remember telling my mom that I'm moving into the cannabis space. And she was like, whoa, not so fast. You're going to go to jail. And I was like, what? No, like, what are you talking about? Like, there's like.
What year was that?
Girl, this is like, 10 years ago?
Okay, so you literally could have gone to jail.
I could have. Yeah. I could have. But I was doing it the smart way. I tried to explain to her, like, I'm studying cannabis. Like, I'm not just going out and, like, selling weed across state lines. I'm actually going to facilities.
You're going to be one of the people driving the change.
Yeah. Like, I'm back and forth to Colorado, going through facilities, trying to understand operations, trying to understand grows, like, all of those things.
All the science, all the chemistry.
All the science of it. And I think that being in that space, initially it took my mom, it took her a second.
Yeah.
Because now I'm also putting her in a position where she has to speak about me like in a positive way against the haters.
Yeah.
Because she even had a situation with her own sister where her sister was like, she just really was like, you know, Nikki's pimping drugs on the community. And my mom's like, whoa, okay, let's like dial it back, you know. So my mom's now like fighting for me and amongst her peer group, just to let them know like this is medicine and this is like more of a wellness than just like selling drugs. And first of all, I don't consider cannabis a drug in that way. I consider it a plant medicine. But I think that like changing my mom's mind on how this looks was very important for me.
Yeah.
Because she knew I was getting ready to go through the fire. And I remember my mom getting upset because people were mad that she was reposting things that had articles with me and dealing with cannabis and psychedelics and stuff. And they were like, you shouldn't put that on your page, you know, the church, the community, like, you know, all this stuff. And so then, you know, I'm just getting my mother at this point is like, she's with me. She's, you know, she's a trooper and she's always fighting for me and always standing for me. But it took a minute for her to understand that disruption because she is not an apple cart disruptor. She's like, she will, but she likes to still play it safe. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
She likes to play it safe. So my experience there went from a very negative, I was very scared. Of course, I was worried about like the law and understanding my place here, but we moved through it safely, and so then we're okay.
It's interesting too that when like one person from the church or 10 people, or like, I don't know, you know what I mean? You can have 100 people just like praising you and so excited that you're here to change somebody's, you know, something. And so excited that you're taking the stance and you're doing it. And you can get so much love from everybody. You get one person who's like, this is, you know, upsetting their life somehow or whatever. And for whatever reason, human nature is to stick on that. And I don't know why.
Stuck.
You know, we all do it.
There.
And you stay there and it just keeps chipping away at your like psyche. Like you hear one person say something
don't even know
negative.
why you're hating anymore. You're just, it's embedded. You know what I'm saying?
And you get all these people who you know you're serving, and then the one person, and you're like, that's okay. You can go, and you're cool with that too. But the fact that they exist still, just the fact that they have to be the naysayer, or they have to say the thing, or hate on something.
And still, they will not say it to your face. That's my favorite part about this whole story, because like, just come to me and tell me why you don't like it. Tell me why you think that this level of disruption is not acceptable. Tell me why this makes you feel uncomfortable. Tell me. Then let's have a dialogue.
We can have a
about
conversation.
It. But they don't want to have dialogue. They just want to stay there.
They can't. That's the thing.
They just want to
their
stay there.
Intermediary is the screen. They speak through intermediaries. They can't just have a conversation.
Yeah.
But we can.
I don't understand it.
It's
not. We have been able to see through it, and we have been able to rise above it, and we have experienced positive change in being that level of disruptor. You know what I mean?
And through it's
painful
sometimes I
we get
actually
through it.
just take off my shoes and stand in the forest or at the river and just imagine myself as an oak tree, just grounded there. And I pull the energy in, and I'm just like, that's who I am. And nobody can fuck with that. Like perspective when you're in nature is a whole different thing. And then you go back in and you turn on, your phone, or you go back in the kitchen or wherever somebody's saying, and you kind of become bulletproof because it's such a different way of thinking. Like when I get out into nature, I'm not even like in the moment. It's not about mindfulness. It's literally about getting out of the moment. It's about like shedding all the shit, all the noise. It's all, because that's what all this shit is. It's just noise. It's noise that prevents you from action. And so you get out and do something, whether it's listening to music, taking a drive, taking a walk, whatever, and you get out there, and that's when you get these ideas that are above all of that stuff. And that's what you got to listen to. Not the voice inside of you that's trying to please all the people who might say something negative when you act, whatever it is that you're going to do. But go out somewhere on your own, get to that place of thinking and coming up with ideas, and then go please that person,
Yeah. I agree. On time.
Or go get really high, and then you get really good ideas. Okay, cool. I feel like
hey, we're almost at the end of our incense.
Incense is almost gone, which means,
for you guys that don't know, we burn an incense every show, and usually right around the time the incense is almost out, it's about time for us to wrap.
I think there's like a reason that incense is the size that it is, because it's literally like a good conversation.
It is. It's a great conversation. The time
for a good conversation.
So yeah, I think that we have explored a lot of ways that we deal with hate and conflict coming from disruption. I believe that we understand how to move through it and put ourselves in safe spaces where we're still able to thrive. And I think that we will always continue to be a fucking disruptor.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Well, you can't let it stop you. And I know that that's such an easy thing to say and, a hard thing to actually do. I think it helps very much to have a friend who you can feel bulletproof with.
About it.
So that you're like this, yes, that's a good idea, and go out there, and no matter what, that more than anything else in my life makes me feel like, okay, whatever so-and-so says, it doesn't even matter.
Doesn't even matter.
Like in-person friendship.
I put an imaginary force field around me, around us, just
I feel it. Yes.
Cover us while we go out into this world and face these
Because the truth is,
things.
we are living in a hard time. It's okay to acknowledge that, but we can be here for each other.
Yeah.
So go nurture some friendships and get through it together.
Exactly. Until next time,
All
friends.
Right. All right, Nikki, it's been so great. And you guys, we're so happy that you're here, and thanks for being here, and,
Absolutely.
keep the conversation going.
Cheers.
Cheers.